Randy is a professional speaker, so I was asking him, I said, I get nervous before I do all these things. And he says, well, if you're really well prepared, you shouldn't be nervous. And so he just shot my entire talk to heck. My biggest problem getting ready for this morning right now was I didn't know how to start this thing. I've had the great privilege of going around the country probably 30, 40 times and share my personal testimony about coming to Christ at age 28, which I'll share a little bit more in a minute. And so that one, to Randy's point, is I'm a little bit more prepared, but this is a little bit different. I'm going to share a little bit to give you guys some context, but the talk I'm going to give is really kind of a new one for me. But it comes out of a heart that's old, and I'll speak to that. And I was like, how do I start this thing? So I feel like the Lord just gave me two things. One this morning when I called a guy I'm discipling that's a fairly new convert, and the other one is out of a guy that I was just on a weekend retreat with a handful of guys that's a new convert. And this guy was a drug addict and a drug dealer in college. And he described one of the drugs that he used to sell. And I said, of all the crazy stuff I've ever done, I never did drugs. And I always wanted to. And even today, there's this part of me that'd like to test one. I mean, it's just being God-level honest. And he described one of these drugs and what it was like on it. And he described this thing at such an amazing way that it just wanted me to get on it more. And I thought, man, I really missed out. That was my thought. But I was sitting there thinking, the talk I'm going to give to you comes from a heart that I hope every person in this room has a taste of what that conversation was like for me, except for my topic. Instead of it being a drug, I pray that it is a heart for those that don't know Christ. And I am convinced that every person in this room, including me, is not where we could be in being used by God in the lives of others. And my exhortation, I pray, is going to be that simply, wherever you are in that process, that you just take a little bit of a movement forward. So that's one story. The second story is I called this guy, and this has never happened to me, but I spoke at my Sunday school class, similar topic, several weeks ago. And at the end of my time speaking to him, I was sharing a story, and I literally broke down bawling my head off. Why I was crying is because God gave me visibility to where people really are in their walk with Him as it's regarding to evangelism. And I just hurt. I hurt for them. And I'm going to tell you, I hope it doesn't happen here, because I haven't cried in a tie in a long time. But my passion is for people to get a hold of what evangelism really is. And to start us off, I want to do a quick poll. I like to learn a few things. Real quick. How many of people in this room came to Christ, if you'd raise your hand please, came to Christ as an adult, post-college? Okay? Keep your hands up please. How many of you of these people raising their hands did not grow up in a Christian home? Did not. So out of 100 people, roughly, or whatever's in this room, it looks like 8 or 10. 8 or 10 people are adult converts. Right there is one of the biggest issues we have, is we are talking about reaching people most of us don't have any clue of what they're about, because we didn't grow up like them. But let me tell you a little bit about me. I was born in a Quonset hut in Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. So I'm probably the only guy in the room whose place of birth was covered by volcanic ash when Mount Pinatubo erupted. But I was born, I moved every 2 years because my dad was with the government, moved every 2 years to a different country, ended up going to high school and college in Virginia. I was about to graduate from college, and my dad is driving on Highway 29 near Charlottesville, Virginia, and he looks over to me, he says, Dave, do you know who I work for? And this is one of those profound moments you never forget. I said, well, Dad, you work for whatever the company was. He says, no, son. I'm an operative for the agency, CIA, and I've been covert my career, and I'm being allowed to retire overt. So my dad was an agent for the agency, and on his wall, there's a plaque that simply reads, thank you for your service, retired from the agency with a date. There's no start date, so that nobody knows when he really started for the agency. So my dad was a spook. It's one of those things, oh, your dad worked for the agency, right? Yep, he did. For about 5 minutes, my dad was cool. For the rest of my life, My dad and my relationship with him has been one of anger, frustration, complete disappointment. I'm the kid that pitched a 4-hit shutout in front of pro scouts where they were forecasting a great professional baseball career. My dad didn't go to the game, and he questioned me, why did you let him have 4 hits? That's my dad. So most men in this room, and ladies, I don't understand ladies as well as my wife would attest, but men, a lot of us are motivated to please our dads, and just for my dad to just respect me, to love me, and just approval. It starts when you draw that first little picture and you go up, right? It starts there. That clicked for me. So high school, straight A's. I was one of those nerds on TV that did the academic TV show. I was a great athlete in school. I went to University of Virginia. I was in the governor's school for the gifted program in high school. I was managed a summer internship program out of the engineering school at high school. That was, by the way, I started in college with a math philosophy degree. So I took a whole course on do I exist? Okay, so that's kind of interesting. By the way, the real problem with the course is it never answered the question, right? And it didn't. So, but that was my life growing up, is I was going to bust my butt to make my dad proud of me. And so I ended up graduating from University of Virginia in degree in engineering, did well, went to Arthur Andersen, heard nobody makes manager at Arthur Andersen Consulting in 4 years. I made manager in 4 years. So by my mid-20s, everything is going well, the way it looks. And one of the things I do when I share my testimony is I'll start the whole talk with a talk about the demo version. Anybody's ever sold technology, you know what the demo version is. That's where the disconnect is between the real version and what you show them. But that was my whole life. I lived a demo version life. So at age 28, sport car, dating women all over the place, traveling overseas to have some good fun in the Bahamas, etc. Just great, great life. I'm a train wreck. I'm going into debt, thousands of dollars a month. The reason I have so many girlfriends, and sometimes I kept multiple just in case, is because I was so insecure as a man that the biggest fear I had is somebody would actually like me. Because I had this deep-seated fear that if anybody ever got a hold and really understood me and knew me, they would reject me the same way that my father did. By the way, that's after years of counseling have I gotten this amazing insight. So at age 28, a friend of mine who's not a Christian gave me a book called Adult Children of Alcoholics. There was another demo version growing up. My dad and my mom were alcoholics and abused us as kids growing up, not physically, but verbally. And many a night I sat at the window and prayed to the degree I could pray as a kid then, oh, just please let my mom and dad come back safely. Okay? So at age 28, I made the decision to take my own life. And there's a whole story around this, and I'm going to share some of the principles in a minute. But in that whole story, a person had given me a book called More Than a Carpenter. Okay? There's a person that cared about me. And in this book, now just to give you an idea, I graduated with pretty good grades from a pretty good school. If you would have given me a lie detector test at age 28, do you believe in Jesus Christ? The answer would have been no. But here's the scarier part. Do you realize he was a historical figure? My answer would have been no. Because in my thinking, in my mid-20s, is that Jesus was sort of like kind of a fairy tale, Santa Claus, Easter bunny. I had no perspective. If you'd asked, is there a God, I would have said yes, because I dabbled in Buddhism in college. I dabbled with transcendental meditation outside of college. I went to the Maheshma Yogi Institute and studied transcendental meditation for a year or two, because I heard the big guys could meditate and levitate in the other room. Right? So I studied. I wanted to do that. So I did that. I was a big disciple of Anthony Robbins. You guys remember Tony Robbins? Awaken the Giant Within, Unlimited Power. I was going to go do the fire walk with Tony. Okay? The fact that I was searching in all these places tells you that there was something going on inside of me that was not being resolved. In addition to that, alcohol began to take over my life. Instead of just partying from Friday through Sunday, I was now starting to party during the week. So work hard, party hard was a big part of the lifestyle I was leading. And then this lady, this friend of mine, this girl was one of the few girls I didn't date, gave me a book called Adult Children of Alcoholics. I collapsed to the ground as I read this book because I realized whoever this person that wrote it understood me. And it was the first time in my life that I felt understood by anybody. And then I bawled my head off, which has been a common theme in my life, because I'm a messed up individual. They have to write books to try to fix people like me. And at that point in time, I realized I'm screwed up. And my disdain for my mom and dad turned to hatred, because they're the ones that had effed up my life, just to be in the vernacular of the time anyway. They messed me up, right? So here's a guy that knew no Jesus, and the only Jesus follower I knew was my crazy aunt, Edna. And Edna, I want to tell you something. I had no desire to be anything like her, ever. I have a real appreciation. She just passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I had a chance to speak at her funeral. And it was with great joy that I remember her now. But she was a nut job. She was a Christian. She was a weakling. And I thought Christianity was for stupid people. I liked philosophy, so I studied immaterialism for fun, right? I used to study, do I exist? Nietzsche with the cogito. I think, therefore I am. What does that really mean? So then this person gave me this book when I was at the point that I decided to take my life, More Than a Carpenter, and I said, what the heck? It can't hurt. So I went through this book, and I read it. I have to tell you, Mark, I see you've got it on the back table, but I'm not fond of the cover on the jacket, because this is the only cover that matters, because this is what I came to Christ as. I read this book, and I won't go through the whole story, but this book, at the end of it, I did not resonate with Jesus dying on the cross for me. What I resonated with was the disciples bailing on Jesus when he did die, and then something happened 3 days later that came back and went on for many, many years. All of them except one, we believe, dying for the goal or the objective, and that was the resurrection. You see, I'd studied all the world religions, so I knew there was no other empty tomb in any other world religion. That Christianity was the only one that claimed an empty tomb. And I struggled with the whole Noah thing and the ark and the Adam. Did Adam have a belly button? All that kind of stuff that I wrestled with. But if a man could be raised from the dead after 3 days of being dead, 3 days, that's an important deal. It wasn't 15 minutes, right? But 3 days. And at that point in time in a Jacksonville hotel room, I got on my hands and knees. I was at Anderson. And I just said, I believe. Help me. And I'll tell you, a lot of people say, you've got to really understand the gospel. You've got to really understand your sin and convict. Horse hockey. I came to Christ just at an empty place of needing Jesus. So at age 28, I became a Christian. And it was real deal conversion. And it was a lightning bolt. I'm one of those guys, I have it recorded to the time and the minute on one of those kind of deals. And it was real deal. And I got plugged into the local church scene, did that for a couple of years. And then God brought men into my life that began to invest deeply into my life, helping me learn the Bible. And the best analogy I got is it just a thimbleful at a time. A little bit of milk, a little bit more milk, a little bit over time. But these guys, one of my mentors, Steve, I spent every week meeting with him for an hour for 2 years. He never once ditched me. There were many times I ditched him, because even though I was now a Christian, I still wasn't quite living the right lifestyle, so I'd be up late partying and drinking, come with booze on my breath, and I'd meet with him. And he's just helping me wrestle through the Bible a little bit at a little bit. And I got a lot of stories I could share, but the most profound story I could share with you is the one with my mom and my dad. Because one of the big issues is could I ever be married, because I was so insecure. So God brought into my life a wonderful woman, and I got married to her. We'll be married 14 years next year. And our rehearsal dinner was, the wedding was pretty cool, but the rehearsal dinner was unbelievable to me. Because I was in a room full of, not as many people as this, and people were just standing up. You know how they do the toasting thing? Oh, wait, I forgot. Hold on, let me tell you another story first. This is important because you'll understand this one better. So let's put a parenthesis right there and we'll come back to it. A couple years prior to this, God convicted me to go confront my mom and dad over the way they abused me as a child. So I'm a guy that actually had a face-to-face conversation with my mom and dad and shared with them how I felt growing up. And my dad, both of them are unbelievers, my dad said to me, I am so sorry, I'm an alcoholic, son. And my mom looked at me and said, son, we're very sorry. We did the best we knew, but it's your life, you have to live it now. And in that moment, I forgave him. And I'll tell you this is over 15 years now, I cannot recall an angry thought towards my mom and my dad for the abuse that they gave me. So when people talk about forgiveness, and only in Christ can we forgive. And I will say to anyone in this room that can't forgive an ex-spouse, an ex-this or that, or a partner, whatever it is, no pain is so great that God can't use himself to forgive. And the issue is you.